on one end, as a landlord, this kind of frustrates me. But as a homeowner, if there were a scenario where there were Airbnbs within my neighborhood that constantly had parties and parking issues and fights and things of that nature, that's a whole nother concern. Now, with that said, most Airbnbs don't end up in that format. Most Airbnbs are used as designed. And so, unfortunately, every so often there's a bad actor that could create this type of negative connotation to the short-term rentals. What's going on, folks? Eddie Carrington, mayor of Flux City. Today I am chiming in, reacting to the city of Dearborn basically banning Airbnbs throughout the residential neighborhoods, with exception to their two downtown districts. And so, of course, I get it. Cities everywhere are really trying their best at figuring out how to manage short-term rentals. But this is a little different because Dearborn isn't talking about regulating them. They're more or less focused on removing them completely out of the residential neighborhoods. So you don't usually see a drastic step when it comes to Airbnbs in regards to what the city of Dearborn is thinking about doing with regard to their ordinance and their management of such. So let's get to it.
If you rent Airbnbs or live near one in Dearborn, that could soon change. The city is looking to ban short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods, restricting them to 2 downtown districts. Property owners may also be required to register and license their rental units with the city. Our Priya Mann has a look at the issue, which is expected to be a focus at a meeting a little bit later tonight.
When it comes to short-term rentals in Dearborn, we're talking about fewer than 100 properties.
I'm hoping that they informed the landlords in a proper manner, right? Giving them enough time to hopefully be in the room, because this is definitely a major decision that the city of Dearborn is considering, and actually have already made the determination of what to do. So we'll get to that later on in the video.
50 to 70 short-term rentals. The city says this move is in response to feedback that they've been getting from homeowners. Now, we were out talking to residents. Some homeowners do not want Airbnbs in their neighborhood. Others are open to the idea. In fact, you're going to hear from Abe, and he emailed me late last night saying he had spent the day doing research. He doesn't feel like his interview went far enough. He says this move by the city is, quote, government overreach.
I don't think it's.
And it's also important to note, we're talking less than 100 properties here. So closer to 50 to 70 is what was mentioned in this video. Not a huge amount of Airbnbs scattered throughout the city of Dearborn. That is kind of shocking to me, that the city of Dearborn is taking such a drastic approach to the regulation of Airbnbs within the community.
It's a bad idea, but I think you got to keep the landlord in mind.
Abe Albusaid lives near Ford and Schaefer and has been thinking about turning his home into an Airbnb.
This neighborhood, it's a family-oriented area. So when other families would come to visit other families, I would assume they'd want to stay in a house and not in a hotel.
But some Dearborn homeowners say Airbnbs are a growing nuisance in residential neighborhoods.
The one thing about Abe, he mentioned that it's a bit of an overreach, right? We're at a scenario where it makes sense for cities to regulate, but a full ban on Airbnbs within the residential neighborhoods is definitely kind of taking a more drastic approach. The neighbors in the community has a right to voice their frustration, and it sounds like it must have been a scenario or a number of scenarios where you have these bad actors that potentially rent out a home within the neighborhood, have a party or a gathering, and they are jamming all throughout the night and drinking, smoking, people parking all over the place, all in this residential neighborhood. Maybe the community was just really frustrated to a point where they were able to convince a city council to incorporate this approach and this strategy in order to protect their residences, their neighborhoods, their families. And so you definitely have to understand from that from that vantage point as well.
I don't like to have Airbnb in my neighborhood because the potential of people renting them just for parties and then disrupting peace and quiet, and it gets a little crazy.
Earlier this year, Rita's neighbors had to call police on a large and noisy party at an Airbnb.
And then you have cars all over the place, so you have limited parking as is.
So right there, Rita is calling out just what we were thinking through. These residents are fed up. They're nervous. They're scared. And so on one end, as a landlord, this kind of frustrates me. But as a homeowner, if there were a scenario where there were Airbnbs within my neighborhood that constantly had parties and parking issues and fights and things of that nature, that's a whole nother concern. Now, with that said, most Airbnbs don't end up in that format. Most Airbnbs are used as designed. And so, unfortunately, every so often there's a bad actor that could create this type of negative connotation to the short-term rentals, which ultimately in this scenario made it all the way up to city council, and they're wanting to actually ban Airbnbs as a whole throughout the residential districts and neighborhoods of Dearborn.
And I don't want to have it in my area.
Now, Dearborn City Council is looking at changing the city code for Airbnbs. The council is considering prohibiting short-term rentals in single-family homes and banning them from residential zones.
I think that's a little tough. I mean, I can't see why a single family from a double family home can't be an Airbnb and vice versa and whatnot. But with a certain mandate, I think we should be fine.
What mandate?
Within certain restrictions, obviously, if it's a repeat offender where this house is utilized for block parties over and over or something like that you're seeing, definitely should be a little bit of city interference in that.
And we did hear from the city in a statement. Officials say, we believe that limiting short-term rentals to commercial areas like our downtown districts will protect housing stock for residents, including long-term renters, alleviate noise and other nuisances in quiet neighborhoods, and still offer options to those seeking to book or profit from short-term stays. We are joining cities across the country in creating updated regulations to meet challenges these businesses may present.
And that's the challenge. This is a regulation that completely takes out the opportunity from a landlord's perspective to generate revenue in this format because of maybe certain challenges that they're running into to track down a longer term tenant for their space. And so in a lot of cases, Airbnbs have been a lifeline for landlords that have had challenges from a lease up perspective, depending on their area, depending on the amount that they're asking for based off of the investment that they put into these properties in order to at the very least break even. Maybe on paper it only makes sense as an Airbnb, and so this kind of limits those landlords and owners to a point where they may not be able to generate enough revenue to cover their expenses. So this actually has been voted on already. And what are your thoughts on if this was approved or not? Let's see. We're actually going to pull that video up now. This is actually roughly 3 months old. And so I've had it in my docket for a pretty long time. And I'm just now getting an opportunity to kind of swing back around and check out the videos that I saved that I wanted to react to. So let's see what's going on. And let's see if City Council decided to update the regulation and or just completely take out the ability for Airbnbs to operate within the neighborhoods completely.
The city of Dearborn votes to make sweeping changes to its zoning laws.
Yeah, the new rules impose major restrictions on short-term rentals, such as Airbnbs. Fox News' Robin Murdoch is live from Dearborn City Hall and has the latest details. Robin.
Good morning, Jay and Erica. Yeah, this is certainly going to be the talk of the town today. As you mentioned, there are some new rules regarding short-term rentals here in Dearborn. The city council last night passed a new ordinance that basically restricts where short-term rentals rentals like Airbnbs and VRBOs can be in the city. The meeting happened inside council chambers. It was a packed house last night. As you can imagine, people had a lot to say about this. Now, the short-term rentals will not be allowed in residential zones, but they will be permitted in Dearborn's downtown district. Several people did speak out during the public comment section of last night's meeting. Some complained that short-term rentals are a nuisance, that they are noisy and create parking problems in the neighborhood, while those who own them say visitors in the area rely on them and that restricting where these short-term rentals can be will affect their livelihood. Take
that part. So, I mean, on one hand, you have your residents within this neighborhood, which their voice matters. It definitely matters. You have to keep these individuals in mind when it comes to these types of decisions. No ifs, ands, or maybes. But on the other hand, you have owners basically on the other side saying, hey, look, this is how I pay my mortgage. And so what happens when this individual, based off of how they underwrote this this property, is not able to pay their mortgage anymore due to the updated regulations of not being able to provide an Airbnb or host an Airbnb within a property that they bought and designed and rehabbed just for that to be an Airbnb.
a listen to the council president.
This is not a ban. This is a limitation in an area to the downtown area. A downtown area is known to have people coming in and out of the areas, frequenting the area, and it fits that area. We believe a residential neighborhood is a residential neighborhood. And if you're in the downtown area, and I appreciate that we found this avenue through our lead department, our planning department, our planning commission, that this way, if it's in the downtown area, it's allowed.
So basically, this is what it means. If you were running an Airbnb in a Dearborn neighborhood, that model is basically done. 2, if you own property downtown from a commercial standpoint that could be or already is Airbnb formatted, that value of that property has just went up. This is a good example of why, if you're a small developer or an investor, we can't just underwrite the building. We have to underwrite the policy environment. And so Airbnb may not necessarily be something that you primarily focus your whole strategy around. Maybe it's a secondary approach. However, your primary focus and approach should trump the Airbnb strategy in the event that the regulations in the neighborhoods that you're investing within happen to change overnight. Thanks for watching this video, listening to me ramble. Really appreciate you chiming in. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment below. I'll see you in the next video.